the fact that CES was probably attended, about a third of its normal attendance, maybe even a little bit less than that, gave us a ton of time to put attention on a few things. And if you really looked at what was making headlines, the automotive advancements and innovations and announcements and partnerships definitely were show stealers. As we head into, a couple of years back, Pat, as we head into Mobile World, I said a similar thing about Mobile World is becoming a bit more and more of an automotive show, but mobility and vehicles are somewhat synonymous, right? So in the way we travel, whether that's through a fully autonomous vehicle that gets us from point to point as passengers, or what I would say the global love affair with vehicles, across the globe, people love cars, and we, Pat, are no exception to loving cars. Makes that a hot topic and a headline grabber every single time. So, I wrote a piece in Forbes, and basically the header on this piece, Pat, was that the collision of tech and automotive were on display. And again, to your point, I still remember going to Best Buy and walking in the back corner of the store and looking at the cool stereos. I remember the ones that would come out of the dash, and they would actually, have a little screen on them, and they were like super cool. It's like Pioneer would make them, companies like Alpine. I don't even know if they're around anymore. But now what we're really seeing is the chip makers are becoming the future drivers of automobiles. The BOM on a vehicle in 2030 is going to be something around 20% semiconductors. We are legitimately moving into an era where semiconductors will be the single most important component in a vehicle. So what happened at CES? Well, Mobileye, let's just all kind of do just a really quick run through. Mobileye's new IQ Ultra, first autonomous vehicle on chip that was built specifically for L4. So Mobileye's moving quick, and Mobileye's kind of a black box approach. So what they're doing is partnering with companies. They can take the Mobileye system and they can kind of take the system on chip, put it in, and it is fully contained and available. And by the way, the IQ, the initial system, I believe they've shipped over 100 million units to date. And so as we've heard about the Mobileye spinoff from Intel, I believe that's going to be a massive value creator this year, and potentially for investors and shareholders. Just something I feel is very interesting to watch. Qualcomm, had their new vision system called the Snapdragon Ride Vision System, a scalable, modular computer vision built on, a system on chip technology. It's designed for, implementation of multiple camera systems, ADAS, autonomous driving. And then, of course, what's really interesting about Qualcomm is they're really taking a modular approach to the entire digital chassis of a vehicle. So you've got the ADAS system, telematics system, you got, telematics, you've got the entertainment, and what's the word I'm looking for, Pat? Infotainment. Geez, Louise, God, first pod of the year, and it's like I've never done this before. But I like, the Qualcomm modular approach is definitely leading to a whole bunch of wins. Recently, BMW, GM, Volvo, Renault, doing extremely well right now. This is a part of the business that I think is starting to finally be baked into the company's valuation. And you can't leave out Nvidia. Now, Nvidia's business around automotive has been somewhat stagnant. It has not been growing nearly as much in the last few years. But their Drive Hyperion platform is still out there. They were able to announce a bevy of tier one suppliers, EV makers, trucking companies. Their new latest generation platform, 12 surround cameras, 12 ultrasonics, 9 radar, 3 interior sensing cameras, and a front-facing LiDAR. So they are using all the stacks to try to be able to create. And where they're doing really well, Pat, is they're doing really well on the EV makers, especially over in Asia. But they announced Polestar, NIO, XPeng, and a number of others that are going to be building on their platform. They also announced a full autonomous trucking partnership. And they're incorporating their avatar, the Omniverse avatar technology, to tie together speech, AI, computer vision, and NLP. And Pat, we couldn't probably talk about the automotive without the most impressive demo. And I'll let you kind of talk more about it because you drove like some hundreds of thousands of views on Twitter. But that's our friend's customer at Luminar, who was able to demonstrate some very difficult situations using LiDAR to be able to do ADAS at a level that, well, we saw Tesla certainly could not handle as it was running over the demonstration, the test dummy over and over again, while the LiDAR technology was able to help avoid. So those are some of the demonstrations. But yes, automotive, big time, no oxygen left for you, because that's what you get for doing that to me.
Man, this is a tough one. I don't even have any toys to bring into view either. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to talk about a demo that Luminar did. And for those of you who aren't aware of Luminar, they're a full stack provider of LiDAR solutions, and full stack all the way semiconductors up to the enclosure to the software that makes it run. They have big deals with Volvo and so far, and a couple other folks. What I want to point out is there's a big argument in the industry of, do we need LiDAR or not, right? So there's three sensors, right? There's LiDAR, there's radar, and then there's vision. Elon Musk has gone on record basically saying calling it a fool's errand. And the folks that love Tesla, the Tesla longs, they jump on the bandwagon and they reflect this. But the other thing I'll throw out there, I mean, I think Elon Musk is brilliant, but he's 3 years behind his commitment to do a coast-to-coast full automated trip. The company is late with its full self-driving software. Go back and look at the claims that were made 5 or 6 years ago. And the reality is this stuff's hard, okay? LiDAR used to be, if you see a self-driving car, it used to be that sensor on the very top of the car that looks like an old police siren, right? It's giant. And by the way, those used to cost $5,000 to $10,000 a piece. And I would even say that LiDAR at $5,000 to $10,000 a piece, aside from maybe a robotaxi, is a fool's errand. But this company Luminar has a full module that costs about $1,000, and it's small. It actually looks like an air intake as opposed to this giant, gaudy siren that needs to be a foot above the top of the car. Okay, so the tech has changed. There's been a 10x cost reduction, and the improvements have been so. That's a lot. To make a long story longer, Luminar had. I would say it was absolutely the best demo at CES, which had real live cars in a parking lot. Daniel, you and I attended, and my son Pico did, where they had a Tesla, they had a Luminar-enabled Lexus, and a couple other ADAS cars. And then they had a fake child run across the road. It was dark. And they had a demo where the child was occluded by a car up until the very end. And you can see the video in our show notes. Net, the Tesla, which I was driving, just blew right over, and I ran over the fake kid. It was jarring. I have to admit, it wasn't, a nervous laugh, right? But it did not stop. Tesla's ADAS system did not stop for the child. The Lexus that was enabled with the Luminar system stopped on a dime. It was abrupt, but the child was saved. And that really got me thinking, Daniel, why isn't LiDAR more popular? And I know $1,000 is a lot when the average gross margin on an average car is $5,000, but don't use averages when you're talking about EVs, because EVs are a lot more expensive. And I think more automakers should make that an example.
Yeah, I don't think there's any circle back here, buddy. I think the having sat in the back seat, you're right. The word jarring is appropriate, and I think the opportunity to incorporate LiDAR at scale is going to be a way to provide safety. I can't quite understand when around $1,000 a vehicle you could save lives. Yeah. The only thing I could say is somehow the National Traffic Safety Board, or I think it's the NTSB or whomever it is that does this stuff, hasn't been able to quite determine mathematically the lives impacted. But what I saw was accidents that can be prevented. Technology can prevent accidents. We should put the focus on that, like we put the focus on other health safety over the last couple of years. I mean, this is real, and accidents are a killer of people, young and old. So I know we don't have any more time on this one, but I could talk about this for forever.
Yeah, and shout out to Ian Cuttress for putting the comment out there. Mobileye is driving down the cost as well. So is On Semiconductor. So there's a lot of companies out there in addition to Luminar trying to drive that down. But hopefully with 3 or 4 vendors driving it down, the cost can get below $1,000 cost, and it can become. But I'm thinking it should at least be an option. I'm sold on it. That doesn't mean I don't like vision. I don't like radar, but I like technologies that can see far, see in the dark, and have increased intelligence over having a complex vision system.